songo mpoyo mawa ezali kokamwa na RDC mikolo nyonso kaka kozwa basi na makasi ata mwana ya sanza misato na Bukavu mawa. Les enfants de 3 mois.
It was 4 o'clock in the morning when the Interahamwe stormed our compound. They soon cut my husband's throat. I was in my 8th month of pregnancy. They kidnapped me and carried me into the bush where several of them raped me. Thereafter, they wondered about the position of my baby in my belly. They then took out their knives. I became unconscious and they abandoned me right there. I do not deserve to live any longer. Several soldiers tied my feet and legs and raped me one after the other. Then they forced my own father, threatening him with their weapons, to make love with me. After that, they inserted pieces of wood and their gun barrels into my vagina. They hurt me so much, morally and physically.
Un groupe de gens qui sortaient de Bandundu.
A group of individuals came from Bandundu. They attacked me and held me hostage for 48 hours. They stripped me naked and raped me.
Ils m'ont enlevé tous les habits, m'ont déshabillé et ils m'ont fait tout ce qu'ils avaient voulu. Bon, et ils m'ont violé.
2 men threw me on the ground. One of them snatched my child and threw him on the ground. He kept on crying as the other man raped me. The Interahamwes burst into my aunt's house, killed her husband, and kidnapped me into the bush. At 13, I became the wife of 3 of the men. 2 sportsmen attacked me in the night on my way to church. After they had finished raping me, one of them pushed a Fanta bottle into my vagina. Horror in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Congolese women, girls and mothers have been going through an unprecedented living hell. Sexual violence was used by enemy soldiers against women of this country during the war. However, uniformed citizens of Congo, policemen and servicemen learned the lesson, and they too have followed suit, perpetrating the same acts against their Congolese sisters. The tragedy has been entrenched by the ripping and degradation of the state structure, the impunity with which armed persons indulge in rape and sexual violence, along with wholesale human rights violations. Today, the disquieting phenomenon of rape and sexual violence has assumed pervasive dimensions among the civilian communities of both urban and rural areas. The result is that everywhere in this vast country, victims, women, mothers, girls and children are being traumatized and often rejected.
It is so disastrous that, humanly speaking, one can no longer explain all that. I have seen women walking with their uterus in hand because of sexual violence.
All that started with war First and foremost, the 1993 inter-ethnic armed struggles in neighboring Rwanda. Consequences: a massive influx of Rwandan refugees in DRC. In a matter of 24 hours, several thousands of people poured right here into Goma, the capital city of North Kivu, while about the same number of people were entering Bukavu, the capital of South Kivu. Mingling with these displaced persons were troops of the ex-Rwanda Armed Forces and Interahamwe's, the Hutu militias of the late Rwandan President Habyarimana. A few years later, the wars of 1996 and 1998 ultimately ushered in several foreign troops, leading to the creation of all kinds of militias. Various militias emerged at the time the Pygmies were revolting against the Bantus in North Katanga. Diverse militias, APR, MLC, FDD, ANC, FAC, RCD, Mai Mai, Pygmies, Interahamwe's, as well as all sorts of mercenaries and bandits allied to escaped prisoners and groups deserting from the various armies. This chaotic situation has plunged the populations into grief and increased poverty in DRC, in addition to creating trouble and suffering for children, boys and girls, women and senior citizens. But the extreme dimension of the phenomenon of sexual violence in DRC lies in the horror that often accompanies such acts. If they happen to get you, as I am here, they start chopping you off in bits until you are finished. They eat human flesh without grilling or cooking it, raw like that. If they cut the breast, they eat it. If they cut women's private parts, they eat.
In this country, on the average, each day, 1,200 Congolese die. They do not die, unfortunately, perhaps in front of television cameras like elsewhere. They die quietly in the woods, but die they do, unfortunately. And that means that we have the equivalent of an Asian tsunami every 6 months. 4 million people have died in the last 6 years, and they continue to perish, unfortunately, across the country. Not just in the east where the conflict is, but also indeed in the west.
Faced with such a disastrous situation, certain NGOs have been working discreetly and with fear to fight against sexual violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo. With the meager resources at their disposal, they have been managing victims by providing them with their most urgent needs, such as medical care, psychological care, food, and clothing. However, in 2003, UN agencies, NGOs, civil society, and the DRC government established in an unprecedented coalition an interagency multi-sectoral program for preventing and controlling sexual violence in DRC. This UNFPA-led program, entitled Joint Initiative, is the result of the joint action initiated by various agencies of the United Nations, the government, and NGOs in a bid to assist and guide the efforts made on the ground by the government and non-governmental organizations.